It's 5 p.m. and welcome everyone. Mr. Meyer, can you lead us in the pledge?
Please stand. Your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John.
pleasure.
Okay, we welcome those who are here for purposes of addressing the board at the proper time and in the order of their request. For those who have not already submitted a request, we have provided forms in the back of the room and also have additional copies here in the front at the Assistant Secretary's position. If you wish to speak during the meeting, please fill out a form indicating your name and the agenda item you wish to address. You may also make a request to give testimony on an item not listed for discussion today. However, full discussion on any items not listed on the agenda will have to be delayed until such time that the item can be publicly posted in advance as a regular agenda item. If you wish to ask questions, please address them to the chair and not to individual members of the board or to the staff. The board has been meeting in closed session regarding matters listed on today's closed session agenda and wishes to report that no reportable actions were taken. We are now at public hearings, adoption of budget for fiscal year 2020-21. Call on Chris Steinhausen.
Yes, Dr. Williams and members of the board, we have several speakers who have requested that we read their comments. I'll be reading the ones in English, and Mrs. Rodriguez will read the ones in Spanish. The first request is as follows. My name is Nicole Ochi, and I would like to comment on item number 16, the 2021 budget. I represent Public Advocates, a civil rights organization with deep experience in school funding. For the past several years, we have worked with the district and other organizations like Children's Defense Fund, California, Latinos in Action, and Long Beach Forward to put on LCAP forms and increase services for high-need students in LBUSD. I have several concerns about the budget. First, I am very concerned that the budget will be voted on today when it is the first time that any budget information has been presented to the public. This is a mockery of community engagement. No action should be taken today on the budget. Second, the budget underestimates the amount of revenue that LBUSD will receive next year. Specifically, it assumes a 10% cut or $72 million cut in LCFF funds, which is very unlikely. The Senate already rejected these cuts, and the Assembly is likely to reject them, or at least will propose much less draconian cuts. The proposed budget also fails to account for learning loss mitigation funds. The distribution of these funds are still under negotiation, but according to an analysis by Children Now and Opportunity Institute, even under the least favorable scenario, LBUSD is projected to receive at least $33 million. Third, according to the budget memo, the expenditures do not include cost of reopening schools in the fall with physical distancing requirements and costs including the possible expansion of online learning. Without accurate revenue and expenditure information and results from Home Learning Opportunities Survey to guide reopening plans, it is impossible to have a meaningful public discussion about the budget. Parents, students, and other stakeholders deserve to have a voice in these important decisions about the budget and return to school. Other districts have created opportunities for parents and students to engage in dialogue on these topics and to provide meaningful input. Long Beach can follow the example of districts like Oakland and have town halls, study sessions, and work groups on the budget and return to school. Today's action on the budget is completely lacks community input. Therefore, it is crucial that in addition to pushing back today's vote on LBUSD's initial budget, LBUSD must commit to publicly revising and adopting an amended budget in September that reflects accurate information about revenues and expenses and takes into account community input gathered over the summer. I would also like to register two additional concerns about the budget. First, the budget includes a nearly $20 million or 50% increase in its books and supplies line item. Such a large increase, especially when reopening costs are not taken into account, is suspect. Second, the district is estimated unassigned reserves over and above the required reserve for economic uncertainties is more than $200 million, which is up from $125 million in the 1920 budget and $95 million over the 1819 budget. LBUSD's reserves have more than doubled over the past 3 years, and now is the time to lean upon these unusually vast reserves to fully fund a restorative return to school for students who have been disproportionately harmed by COVID-19, school closures, trauma of police violence, low-income students, homeless students, foster youth, English learners, students with disabilities, and students of color, especially Black serve more. Next, this is the second. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Kim Tabari, and I am a resident and a parent of an incoming high schooler in the city of Long Beach. As a Black mother to a young Black boy in LBUSD, I have concerns about unequal funding allocated to schools throughout the city. I am concerned that school of choice allows for some schools to be more resourced in white and high-income neighborhoods, and less resources in poor communities with the majority kids of color. You can see clear results reflected in both ELA and math achievements disaggregated by race of students in the city. My public comment is in reference to item number 16, adoption of the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021. My concerns about the budget are, 1, it includes almost $20 million or a 50% increase in its books and supplies line item. Why the large increase in the books line item? Number 2, unassigned reserves, which, by the way, is excessive, is more than $200 million for the upcoming year. Again, why the drastic increase? Because in the 2019-20 budget, reserves were $125 million. In the prior year, the reserves were $95 million. What is the need for LBUSD's reserves to double over the past 3 years? My request and asks of the board are, number 1, please do not rush to vote on the budget today. It should be presented as an information item. Number 2, please provide specific and meaningful opportunities over the next few months to engage parents and other decision makers about the budget. For example, a Budget 101 study session to explain the various sections of the budget. Number 3, please publicize the amended budget in September 2020 to reflect the updated information about expenses, revenues, etc. Thank you to the board for your service representing students, parents, and other stakeholders living in the city of Long Beach. Next, hello LBUSD board members. Please postpone this vote today. The public and LBUSD stakeholders need time to learn about and provide input on this budget, especially with multiple competing community priorities now demanding all of our time. Thank you for your consideration. Edric Guys. Next, dear LBUSD Board of Education, I am writing to you in regards of agenda item 16, which is slated for tonight's June 2nd, 2020 board meeting. I request that the board does not take action on the budget tonight. Please hold off on the vote until the community has an opportunity to review and provide input. Sincerely, Emily Woodman Nance. Next, my name is Jerlene Tatum. I am an LBUSD parent. I would like to speak on agenda item number 16. I request that you do not take action on the budget tonight. Please hold the vote later to give the community an opportunity to review and respond. Yet, if you take action tonight or not take action, I request that you provide robust and meaningful opportunities over the summer to engage parents, stakeholders, and decision makers about the budget and the return to school. I would participate if the district held a budget study session that explained how its budget decisions will impact school sites in the future. Lastly, I request that you publicly revise and adopt an amended budget in September which reflects accurate information about revenues and expenses and takes into account community input gathered over the summer. Thank you. Next, good evening. My name is Angelica Salazar, and I'm a Director of Education Equity at the Children's Defense Fund, California. As a children's advocate, I have been committed to fighting for equity, transparency, accountability, and meaningful community engagement in the district decision-making. I will be speaking on agenda item number 16. First, I want to extend my hope that everyone is taking care of themselves during these important times of civil unrest. I hope that we all do our part to stand up for Black lives. Since 2015, 14, I have come before this body during the month of June to participate in the annual public hearing that students, parents, and stakeholders are guaranteed under the local control funding formula. In past years, the community had more time to review the proposed budgets. It's a step backwards for LBUSD to push a budget vote tonight without giving the community adequate time and opportunity to respond and engage. The rules are different this year because of COVID-19, yet I still expect LBUSD to perform above the minimum state requirements and provide adequate time for meaningful engagement. Do not take any action on the budget today. Vote on a draft budget later in June and use the coming weeks to discuss this budget proposal with students, parents, and stakeholders. Account for the millions in learning loss mitigation funds you expect to receive. Based on the news from Sacramento, assume the 10% cut to LCFF will be restored or at least significantly reduced. Stay open to making changes after July 1 from more precise state budget estimates and from your own finance department's estimates about the cost of reopening schools this fall based on student needs. June, July, and August are important months to convene focus groups, review survey data, and foster dialogue with the community about a more informed, amended budget that is achievable in August or September. Use the flexibility you have been given to expand community engagement, not limit it. Let's appreciate that LBUSD is in a position to fund students' education at the same or very similar level as the current year. You do not need to cut from the budget, and students need you to choose not to cut. LBUSD's reserves of more than $200 million permit you to save critical school-based operations and positions that exist to support high-need students such as teachers' aides and intervention targeting English learners, special education students, foster youth, homeless students, and low-income students of color. Families have lived some of their most difficult moments during the last few months with school closures and the economic crisis. Many students have suffered learning loss that we haven't even assessed. The need for healing and restoration is great. LBUSD is in a position to offer a full curriculum this fall that tends to the academic and social emotional needs of students. These are unprecedented times when more than ever we need a meaningful process for community engagement on the budget. Thank you. Next, good evening LBUSD board members. My name is Norma Rodriguez. I am the organizing director with Californians for Justice. Californians for Justice is a statewide grassroots organization working for educational equity and racial justice by building the power of youth, communities of color, immigrants, low-income families, and LGBTQ communities. I'm writing to you in regards to Agenda Item 16, Budget Fiscal Year 2020-2021. We applaud the district in the spaces where they lead with collaboration and partnership with various community partners. Today, we want to see this level of engagement and collaboration when it comes to the budget decisions. Now more than ever, in a moment where we are in the middle of a health crisis, historic budget cuts, as well as a national mobilizations calling for justice in the ongoing deaths of Black people by police is a time to slow down. You have tough decisions to make as a district moving forward, but let's ensure that LBUSD's budget has the input and community engagement of the community members, and the budget decisions landed do not have unintended consequences that further hurt Black students and students of color, and the progress that LBUSD has made to close the achievement gap and move towards centering on equity and inclusion. Let's ensure that our district budgeting moving forward centers on our highest need communities in order to continue leading together. We ask that you do not take any action on the budget today. Vote on a draft budget in late June and use the coming weeks to discuss this budget proposal with students, parents, and stakeholders. June, July, and August are important months to convene focus groups, review survey data, and foster dialogue with the community about a more informed amended budget that is achievable in September. We look forward to partnering with you in the process. Thank you for your time. Norma Rodriguez. Next, my name is Tonya Reyes Orenga. I would like to comment on the budget, Agenda Item 16. I was not aware that the board would be voting on the LBUSD 2020-21 budget tonight. I did not see the notice of any workshops for parents, any Zoom budget presentations, no regional meetings by each school board representative, no special meetings in Spanish or Khmer. I did not see a special ed parents briefing, nor a meeting for other groups of parents in the city. If I am wrong, then I stand corrected. Given the COVID-19 environment, I understand that the virtual nature of gathering and meetings makes these events difficult, but it's for that very reason that an effort should be made to reach out to parents and stakeholders who must participate in the budget process. Fiscal year 2020-2021 will bring dramatic changes in the way LBUSD operates. We will have the distancing and sanitation measures required because of COVID-19 and the resulting dramatic budget cuts that will follow. Personnel and school sites will be greatly affected. It is important for parents, staff, and teachers to have time to study the impacts, get a better understanding of the budget, and craft responses that will assist you in making it easier for everyone to cope with the major changes ahead. I ask that you do not vote on the budget tonight, but use this meeting to serve as a hearing of an ongoing conversation with parents, teachers, and staff. I understand that parents need to get their questionnaires into the district by tomorrow. Why have a vote on priorities the day before you set to receive all the surveys outlining parents' priority tomorrow? Please be more transparent. Please delay the vote and start providing more opportunities for input into your decisions. And Mrs. Rodriguez will read the next two statements.
Okay. You can hear me okay? This is from Edith Rodriguez. My name is Edith Rodriguez of Latinos in Action, and I want to make a comment over item number 16. First, I ask that you do not take any action on the proposed budget tonight. Secondly, please take your vote after you give us the opportunity as parents and community to review and respond. I hope that you consider my petition. It's also important to revise the budget publicly and that modifications are made in August and September that reflect information more precise over the costs and expenses, taking into account a very well-formulated plan to return to school. Next is Martha Cota. She is with Latinos in Action. She starts by asking that we do not take a vote on the budget. The parents, students, and other interested parties deserve to have a voice on these important decisions over the budget and return to school. I ask that the parents and students have a dialogue over these issues and that they can give in their input and suggestions over the budget and how to plan to return to school. My opinion is that we have focus groups to listen to them so that they can all feel secure. It is also important that the budget that you approve be further in June and that it could be revised in July or August when we have more information over the state, what the state gives us and our local expenses. Also, it would give you more time to include parents, students, and community members during the months of June, July, and August. I'm very concerned that this budget has not included all the costs of reopening the schools in the fall, with the required costs of social distancing, and to continue with online classes for some. I'm also concerned that if you cut 10% of the budget, especially when we have heard legislators talk about budget cuts, it doesn't seem like you're utilizing your reserves for these to prevent these cuts. I ask you that you please prevent these cuts because the district has plenty of reserves that need to be used at this moment. Thank you. And that's it.
And those are all the comments, Dr. Williams.
All right, thank you very much. Call for agenda items for separate action. Adoption of the agenda is posted.
Yes, Dr. Williams, we need to pull the last resolution on the agenda. We need to pull resolution 06020-D.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Roll call vote. All in favor, Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
And I vote, we got everyone.
Mr. Meyer?
Mr. Meyer.
Thank you. Aye.
All right, we got everyone. Okay. And I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Approval of minutes?
Move approval. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Mrs. Craighead?
Aye.
Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. We have no communications. Public testimony on items listed on the agenda. Letitia?
Yes, we do have several. The first is, good evening, Mr. Steinhauser, you're ready to take note of the time?
Correct.
Okay. Good evening, board members and executive staff. I'm writing to question the appropriateness of the proposed salary of our future superintendent and to make a cost-saving recommendation. Although we are delighted with the choice the board made, I find myself in a familiar and uncomfortable position. When the budget is tight at a school site, we are directed to address the position, not the person. What is best for the school budget? This is where I find myself. Chris Steinhauser has been our superintendent for 18 years. He is without doubt the expert at being the superintendent of LBUSD. I also realize that he has always been rather modest with his salary, taking cuts or not taking raises when money was in short supply, etc. It is not fiscally appropriate that our new superintendent would begin her new job at a salary $58,000 higher than our 18-year expert veteran's ending salary, especially at a time when the district is in such a dire financial situation. It would be much more appropriate for the new superintendent, for whom this is a first-time position, to come in at or below the outgoing expert. If we were in an era where education was funded as it should be, this might not be an issue. However, due to our pandemic and the related financial losses, we were already looking at the potential of 10% salary cuts for the rest of us, potential layoffs, and or up to 18 furlough days. Now, with the recent social unrest, looting, and vandalism in our community, the outlook is even more bleak. The money to rebuild our neighborhoods will have to come from somewhere else. There is every possibility that our bare bones budget will be slashed even more mercilessly. A generous pay raise to one employee sends the wrong message to our staff and communities. We have long been top-heavy in Long Beach. However, the financial cuts tend to affect the people who do the boots-on-the-ground job of actually teaching our students. We are not assistants to the plethora of assorted superintendents. We are one half of the most significant unit in education, a teacher and a student. Not only should the superintendent's salary be less extravagant, some of the excess administrative positions should be cooled. It's the perfect time for reorganization. With larger class sizes and less student support through nurses, librarians, counselors, and SLPs, teachers have borne the burden of poor funding. It is true we have lost students, but we have enlarged classes and eliminated nearly half of our teaching staff over the past decade, and yet we have more administrators. Just like our budget, our staffing needs to be balanced. When the economy turns around, as it will in time, then all employees should be looking at a raise in compensation, not just one. The rank and file who have been working 10 to 12 hours a day, every day, should have a raise.
Time's up, Mrs. Rodriguez.
Okay, this is from Christine Kelly, President of the Teachers Association. Next is Barbara Crane. Please convey this message to the board. Postpone voting on budget recommendations tonight. The board needs to wait until input from all stakeholders has been gathered. I am a 40-year resident of Long Beach and a property owner. My son attended the LBUSD schools, and my grandchildren currently go to Rogers and Wilson. I live in District 4. Next,
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
For the record, that seemed to be a budget public comment.
well, it's also under agenda item because
Yes.
the adoption of the budget is later on.
I'm sorry.
See the
yes.
others?
Yes,
The others
yes,
said,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Next, we have Gerard Morrison, teacher at McBride. With the announcement that the school board has appointed Dr. Jill Baker as the new superintendent, I, along with most teachers I know, cheered the good news. All of us have come to know and respect Jill, and most were delighted to know that we would be working under her leadership. That is why the announcement at the last board meeting has caused such dismay. Along with many of my colleagues in the Teachers Association, I was shocked when the board announced the proposed new salary for the superintendent. The announcement came while the public was learning about the probability of massive cuts in our budget for next year and the possibility of teachers and other district employees losing their jobs. The elevation of our superintendent's salary to presidential levels showed a degree of tone deafness that is hard to express. Teachers can do the math. They know what the cost of the pay raise equates to when it comes to teaching positions. The reaction of most of my colleagues has been to agree with the comments made by board member Juan Benitez, who represented the lone voice in opposition to the proposal. The pay raise proposed to the board seems to be on a scale more appropriate to the good times rather than the bad. There is a good chance that in the near future the board will find itself forced to make tough budget cuts in a period of unprecedented austerity. It would be a shame if the goodwill generated by the appointment of Jill Baker to lead our district was squandered by an out-of-touch salary proposal. Next, we have Jesus Esparza. He's in Spanish, so I'm going to have to translate. I'm really interested in everything related to my son's school. He was going to start at Washington Middle School, and I was told that there will no longer be classes for the rest of the year. My concern is that during this whole time, our children are getting behind. I agree with the budget to include more resources for tutoring so that they can help the students in the areas that they need. The budget should include more for mental health so that we can deal with the trauma and distancing and anxiety that the teachers and parents have been going through. More help for students who have been dealing with the internet, with having no internet, and that the internet will just have been having issues with the internet. One recommendation for the school district is for for them to send packets of homework for students so that they could turn it in every 15 days when it's completed. Thank you for your time and your help. Next, we have Martha Cota. She's also in Spanish, so I will translate. My name is Martha Cota with Latinos in Action, and I have some comments regarding the budget. With regards to the students returning to school, they have been affected emotionally and financially, and as well as their families by COVID-19. And I ask that you assign additional resources towards that, especially their mental health, so that they can have support groups where they will feel free to express their sentiments without being judged, and not just for the students, because of the pandemic, but also because of the closure of the schools and being distant from their friends and teachers, but also for parents who have been suffering a lot of mental issues as well. You can communicate with Latinos in Action to have a conversation with regards to the work that we are doing with families who are having a hard time emotionally because of the pandemic, unemployment, loss of where they live, and not knowing how to help their kids with their homework, in addition to other issues. I hope we can have a dialogue soon so that we can make important decisions. Thank you. This is Digna Acuna, and she's also with Latinos in Action. And again, I'm going to translate. I am a resident of the city of Long Beach with 3 students who go to school here. And I would like to make a comment regarding the budget. Please do not take a vote on the budget. Take your vote after you give the community an opportunity to give some input and to respond to the budget. It's also very important that you revise the budget publicly and that you make modifications in August and September that reflect information that is more accurate over expenses and what they get from the state, taking into account a better plan to return to school. The budget should also include more for mental health so that students can deal with trauma, distancing, and the anxiety over COVID-19, more individualized support and tutoring so that they can make up what they've lost in their learning during this whole time. We can coordinate groups so that they can have more confidence in expressing their needs along with parents and other students. I hope you can consider my comment and take actions that benefit everybody. Thank you. This is another one from Mariela Salgado, and she would like to comment on the budget. I am a Parks Commissioner for the City of Long Beach, member of the Long Beach Early Childhood Education Committee, and most importantly, parent of 2 LBUSD students. In addition, I serve and volunteer to different school sites. These are unprecedented times, and I hope tonight you do not take action on the budget until you've had more community input or, at a minimum, received results from home surveys to further understand the needs of our students. I have reservations and or questions regarding some of the line items and in general worried it does not take into account discussions of a budget deficit, home survey data to pinpoint some of the challenges, nor has student, parent, community stakeholder input. How will the district know how to support the needs of students with special needs, English learners, foster youth, and low-income students if it doesn't know the results of surveys or has had the opportunity to engage community stakeholders? As a parent, I worry when I see in the COVID report included today that as of May 1st, 2020, approximately 79% of students were reported by their teachers as having checked in and assume those figures are in decline as we near the end of the school year. That 20% of our student population that we're missing, 1 in 5 students, have not checked in. These vulnerable populations and families are barely holding on. Resources should be allocated to support their needs and can't say with certainty, I understand if this budget reflects the support we need. For example, line item labeled Materials and Supplies, Object Code 4300, has a 78% jump in 2021 budget from a $25 million allocation to $46 million. What is the district budgeting for that will support these particular students in need under this item? Alternatively, from the Child Development Fund, it reduces the same item by 45% for next year's budget. We have so little data about the pre-K experience to appropriately support and strengthen in the upcoming year. Same item, but different budget priority. Serving on the school site council has allowed me to further understand how there is a growing need in our Title I schools like Edison Elementary for English learners and newcomers. Our teachers on special assignments for English learners work magic, but the need is greater than she can meet. She can only serve about 1/10 of the need. School sites are seeing a reduction in such roles that truly support our student needs, along with other roles like psychologists, counselors, interventionists, etc. And unsure this budget reflects those growing needs. Please let parents engage in this conversation. Next, we have Melissa Morgan. Hi, my name is Melissa Morgan, and I would like to comment on the budget. I'm a parent of a Bixby, soon-to-be Hughes, and Poly High School students. I ask that the district be more inclusive and uphold the values of equity and inclusion and give the community an opportunity to review and respond. I would be willing to participate and recruit parents in meaningful opportunities over the summer to engage with decision makers about the budget and a restorative return to school, as well as budget study sessions that explain how the budget impacts schools and families. I am here to serve, and the need to be inclusive of people of all races and socioeconomic classes is critical, especially at this time. I am concerned about the education and well-being of our Black, Latino, and Pacific Islander youth. Next, we have Lilia Ocampo. She's in Spanish, so I need to translate. I am the mother of 2 students in 4th grade. I'd like to comment on the budget, and I ask that you do not take any action on it tonight so that you can have more community input to process the information and give their opinion. For me, the budget is very important because it will impact the education of my students as well as many other students like my children who are low income and are learning English as a second language, as well as foster kids. We want to be sure that the budget has sufficient resources to cover their needs, educational needs, just like their safety and protection overall. Overall, we need to take precautions so that we can protect them against the coronavirus. And we also need to be sure to take the necessary steps so that they can have psychological help to transition to the new form of learning at schools and things that are to come, including, and as well as the protests and the violence that we have seen in our community that we unfortunately had to see. Thank you. That is it.
Thank you very much, Letitia. We are now at staff reports. There are none. We are at, I'm sorry. We are now at business items.
No, excuse me.
No, Dr. Williams.
Testimony.
Public testimony
On the
items
agenda.
not listed on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So I was
have
right.
several.
Staff reports, there are none.
Uh-huh.
Public testimony on items not listed on the agenda. Letitia?
Yes, we have several as well. So number one, this is from Robert Collins. My concern is 2 board policies meant to protect our most vulnerable children are not being followed. Board Policy 5145.7. The superintendent or the designee shall ensure that all district students receive age-appropriate instruction and information on sexual harassment. Such instruction and information shall include 5 areas. I met with Ms. Dalton and was told the district does not ensure sites have conducted the required sexual harassment training. This was confirmed in an email. There is no district-wide mechanism of tracking what is done with that information at each site level. David Zaid told me he could tell me if all employees in LBUSD had received sexual harassment training, but not all children. Are our employees more important than our children? At my son's school, all the students did not receive the mandatory sexual harassment training, and my son was sexually harassed. Board Policy 0410. Annually, the superintendent or designee shall review district programs and activities to ensure the removal of any barrier that may unlawfully prevent an individual or group in any of the protected categories stated above from accessing district programs and activities, including use of facilities. He or she shall take prompt, reasonable actions to remove any identified barrier. The superintendent or designee shall report his or her findings and recommendations to the board after each review. The language in this board policy is very specific. When I asked Ms. Dalton about this report, she wrote, in such a large district, there are many committees, departments, level offices, sites, etc., that report information to the board on a regular basis, including data on a variety of protected classes. My office is responsible for reporting information in the areas that are identified through the work that we do. Is this what the board intended, or do you want a comprehensive annual report that shows your policy is real? Have board members received this important annual review that protects our most vulnerable kids? I asked for copies of this report many months ago and have not received anything. Does this annual report even exist? Both of these board policies were implemented to keep children safe and take a stand on bullying, sexual harassment, discrimination. I'm requesting that Dr. Steinhauser make sure Board Policy 5145.7 and Board Policy 0410 are both implemented as the board intended. Next. Hi, my name is Nubia Flores Cedeño, and I have a son in an SDC class at Emerson Parkside Academy. I'm not only a mother, I am a PTA mom, a former CAC board member, and I am a commissioner with our city's Citizens Advisory Commission on Disabilities. I'm also the mother that stood up before you and asked you to consider adopting a district-wide inclusion resolution. I'm thankful that you heard us and acted. In my community work with the district, inquiring about diplomas versus certificates for students in special ed, I was told that my son's fate was decided when he left Buffum. Basically, at 4 years of age, it was decided what track my son would be. When I heard that, it was a kick to the stomach. All my fears realized because based on his diagnosis and disability, his fate had already been decided. Being in a mild to moderate class in a special day class, in order to get him to even be considered for any other kind of a classroom setting, or at the most basic level, setting accommodation so that he can participate with his peers in general ed, to achieve that would be a Mount Everest of a challenge. And I'd like to draw attention to my privilege, a stay-at-home parent, bilingual, with access to advocates. I'm horrified to think how hard it must be for a parent who does not speak the language. So think about all the other parents that come to your principals asking for access and consideration. I applaud all the efforts and trainings that you are providing for teachers, but all means all is just a slogan if we don't listen to the parents when they advocate for their kids' needs. Even with all the hours I have volunteered at the district level and school level, I still feel like my son is a second-class citizen. Not enough is done to give our kids in special education a quality education. I ask you to please be mindful as you move forward with budget cuts and staffing. We are in the midst of a crisis, and I applaud how so many teachers swung into action to learn new ways to teach, to make sure children had access to laptops, to make distance learning work for some students. But I ask that you please take into consideration as we think about ways to make school work in the fall. Please be mindful of how your staffing and your changes affect our kids who are already facing the trauma of having to see parents losing jobs, schools closing down, and the inability to see their friends. Please listen to parents who are asking you for help. Our children are much more than points on data charts. They are not case files. They are individuals, and our children in special education deserve as much grace, compassion, and a real education. Either all children have access to an equitable and accessible education, or none of them do.
Ms. Rodriguez, time is up.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Steffi Hans. Dear LBUSD board members, as a parent with a 7th grader at Tincher who was formerly at Emerson and a school volunteer who has been in the school district for 8 years, I am concerned about equitable and accessible education for all children of color and children of all abilities in all of the areas of Long Beach. This was already a challenge before COVID and its economic downturn, and now as we face budget cuts in the school district, I fear this will become more difficult. Our children in special education are especially traumatized when there are staffing changes made, as many tend to do better with the same staff and students that they are familiar with. Please be mindful of how your staffing and class changes affect our kids who have already faced the trauma of having to see parents losing jobs, schools closing down, and the inability to see their friends. Please listen to parents who are asking for your help. I truly believe that we have a good school district and a great city, and that we will come out of this even better than ever if we can all work together and listen to each other. Best regards. Next, we have Heidi Fitzsimmons. My name is Heidi Fitzsimmons, and I have a daughter in a general education class at Emerson Parkside Academy. I 100% support the comments made by my fellow parent, Nubia Flores Cedeño. Children are facing such hard, unsettling times. Please be mindful of staffing changes and how that can greatly affect our children. All means all. Next, we have Stephanie Ryzuch, to whom it may concern. I'm a parent of 2 students in general education at Emerson Parkside Academy. I would like it known that although I do not have a child in special education, I have worked with these students as a volunteer art teacher. I want it stated that I'm sensitive to the needs of the children in the SDC classes and see how impactful teacher selection is to these students. I have been made aware that there are planned changes in teacher assignments and discourage changes to teacher assignments if not absolutely necessary. This is an already difficult time of great challenge and adjustment for all students, but especially students with special needs. And changes like these are not in the best interest of the Emerson students. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard, and I hope you consider our input. Thank you. Lastly, we have Carol Yanessa. I have 2 kids in LBUSD, one at Emerson Parkside Academy and one at Marshall Middle School. I'm writing to firmly support the comments made by my fellow Emerson parent, Nubia Cedeno. Please take them into consideration as I agree strongly with her views. Thank you for your consideration. That is it.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Well done.
Thank you.
We are now at business items, action items, personnel. Mr. Meyer. Mr. Meyer.
Personnel. I present the following proposed actions prepared by the Human Resource Services and recommended by the superintendent. Classified and exempt personnel appointments 4, leaves of absence 12, suspensions without pay 1, separation deceased 1, resignations 9, retirements 3. Certificated personnel appointments 1, leaves of absence 7, separation deceased 1, resignation 2, 1, and I move approval.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote. All in favor. Dr. Benitez.
Aye.
Ms. Craighead.
Aye.
Ms. Kerr.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Instruction.
May I vote, Dr. Williams?
You already did. You moved. Didn't you? Oh, no, you didn't. John, what's your vote?
Dr. Williams?
Aye. My apologies, John. Now the motion is approved unanimously. My apologies, John. Instruction.
I move to approve, although I'm a little worried that I may not get to vote, Dr. Williams, if I move.
Second.
You'll get a chance to vote. Discussion.
Yes, Dr. Williams, I appreciate that we have some new CTE courses being offered. I'd love to hear if she's available from Ms. Pamela Secchi, because I think it's interesting to take into account that our curriculum is moving forward, even though there's a lot of uncertainty about what next academic year will look like. So I'd just love to hear from her what those strategic conversations on, how likely it is for some classes, given the content that I'm reading here, are more posed particular challenges, if indeed there's uncertainty on whether we're still going to be offering remote instruction, home learning. Ms. Secchi, could you provide some just context as to the kinds of conversations we're having on curriculum moving forward?
Well, thank you, Dr. Benitez, for the opportunity to address those important questions. As you indicated, there are a number of new courses for the board's approval on tonight's instruction report. Our curriculum leaders and coaches, along with teacher committees, are continuing to develop these courses to support career pathway programs at our sites. These courses that you see tonight are ones that have been in the development pipeline, and they're an integral component of a comprehensive linked learning curricular program at our high schools. As we continue to put scheduling plans in place for the physical reopening of schools in late August, staff, both centrally and at our school sites, are strategically considering and planning for the specific needs for lab experiences, and other hands-on learning opportunities that these career technical education courses, as well as our science courses and visual arts courses will require.
All right. Further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about those classes as well. For someone who doesn't have an agenda in front of them, 2 of them of note are a baking course for our culinary arts curriculum, as well as a game design course for the high school level. So again, I am always thrilled to see the work that we're doing around real world experience and career tech ed. And the only other thing I wanted to point out on that report was that we received a vaping awareness mini grant from the LA County Office of Education that will help us in our efforts to train staff and talk more about the issues around vaping, which I know has been important to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I would like to add, because Mrs. Kerr talked about the gaming as part of CTE. As an older person, it was hard for me to learn that gaming is a career, that we have things like gaming as a spectator sport and gamers that are making a lot of money. So I thought I would add that just in case there are other people like me who weren't aware of that.
Mrs. Craighead, do you mean it's not game theory to go to law school?
You know, whatever you're passionate about, that's what you should apply yourself to.
I'm just being facetious, Ms. Craighead. Thank you for the comment.
All right. Further discussion? Call for the vote. Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. We are at Finance Report A.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. Call for the vote. Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Finance Report B.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I recuse myself from participation in Finance Report B on the consent calendar. I have a potential financial interest under Government Code 1091 and 87100. My husband works for a subcontractor who has done work for the payees.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved 4-0 with 1 recusal. Business Department report.
I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call. All in favor? Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Purchasing and contracts report.
Move approval. Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote. All in favor, Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. We are now at other items, superintendent items, administrative assignment.
Yes, Dr. Williams, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker.
Okay. Jill?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I am pleased to make the following recommendations that are the first set of recommendations for central office changes for the coming school year to go into effect on the dates indicated. The first is the appointment of Dr. Tiffany Brown from Assistant Superintendent, Office of School Support Services to Deputy Superintendent. The second is the promotion of Dr. Aaron Simon from Director, Office of School Support Services to Assistant Superintendent, Office of School Support Services. The third is a lateral change, but moving Dr. Sosa Vatarama from Director of Head Start to Director of Student Support Services. The next changes are transitions in assignment, but not transitions in appointments. The continuation of Dr. Lucy Salazar in a role of Director, but changing from Director of Education Services to Director, Organizational Equity and Engagement, reporting to the Deputy Superintendent. Michelle Tomasian, currently an administrator overseeing the Long Beach Call Office, to Administrator, Business Engagement and Strategic Partnerships, reporting to the Deputy Superintendent. And a shift in the structure of our elementary office, our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Moskovitz, will move from Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Schools to Assistant Superintendent Early Learning and Elementary Schools. That concludes my recommendations.
Of approval.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for discussion.
Yes, Dr. Williams. I'd like to say I'm actually dismayed that we're taking action on these recommendations tonight. I wish I would have had more time to process the recommendations. We received an email talking about the board earlier today stating that no administrative assignments would take place, no action on administrative assignments would take place tonight. So that's what I understood all day today. And given, again, the bleak, grim fiscal outlook, given the upcoming proposed recommended budget, given decline in student enrollment in the fall, given the uncertainty of what next academic year looks like, given some of what we've heard in public comment tonight, and that we don't, we haven't yet processed and analyzed survey results on the public's perspectives on what next year should be and what we're prioritizing for next year, and that we haven't approved a budget yet for next year. I'm dismayed that we're taking action on administrative assignments tonight. I think I personally would have benefited from having some time to process the recommendations and having some time in the next couple of weeks to process some of the public input as well.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez.
I have a comment. Dr. Baker, can you address the financial or fiscal implications of these changes? Will we be spending more money on these changes, or is there savings involved?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Craighead. So these recommendations come at a time that we are cutting approximately $1 million relative to central office cuts as part of a multi-million-dollar cut that we are engaged in. The $1 million represents a number of central office positions, primarily certificated positions that will be abolished when these recommendations are considered. And so the positions that I've made the recommendation for tonight are critical in nature and continuing the work, assuming many of the duties of prior positions, but also reflective of many actually of the public comments that were made tonight in addressing the social emotional needs of students, ensuring that equity stays at the forefront of our agenda and our work in the future, that we are well connected to our special education community, to our LGBTQ community, and that we are thinking of all of our students and strategically setting up our district for the future.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Baker. Further discussion? Mr. Meyer?
Yes, I want to compliment Jill Baker on her decisions. Jill has been an elementary teacher, a principal, a deputy superintendent. She's devoted her life working in our district. No one perhaps knows personnel better than she, and I applaud the decisions that she's made. I have complete trust in them, and I look forward to our district moving forward with Jill as our superintendent and the new members of her team.
Thank you, John. Megan? Ms. Kerr?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank Dr. Baker for putting these names forward, and I know that folks who are listening don't have anything in front of them to see what those titles are. But I just want to say that they include things like organizational equity, engagement, strategic partnerships, really about stakeholder engagement, equity-centered work. And I know, I think one of the things that's important for all of us to remember is that we are in a time of transition. And unfortunately, we're having a time of transition in a time of upheaval. And so during a public health crisis and pandemic, social unrest and turmoil and a yearning for justice and civil rights. And so as much as I even personally want to cling to that idea of what the next thing looks like, I'm trying to take a step back and look at the big picture, kind of the 30,000-foot picture, and realizing that as we transition to new leadership in this district, that things will be different. And as much as there's a craving to come back to something familiar, within that familiarity, our new leader will surround herself with people who bring forth an agenda that she is clearly trying to lay out around stakeholder engagement and equity and social emotional learning, that equity and excellence to move forward. So I know it's hard to hear all the words for folks who don't have anything in front of them, but that this is bringing the strength of our district in a focus around equity and excellence, and at the same time being very fiscally mindful with decreasing the budget of central office staff, which many of our public comments talked about today. So it's making that even more lean. So I applaud the effort to really focus on the equity and excellence lens within the context of that fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Williams, may I provide some additional context?
And just chiming in, Jill, again, thank you for your proposal on the personnel implications that you discussed. And we do basically understand the importance of putting a team in place that will help improve and continue the work of the district on the work that we've done over the years in making Long Beach Unified one of the most respected districts in the United States and in the world. And any organization has to be able to make those adjustments moving forward. And they are extremely sound, very sound recommendations that you have made. They do have budget restraints tied to them. The fiscal implications are rather real, and the impact on our students should be far-reaching in terms of continuing to move the needle on all the important things that have to happen for our kids: equity, fairness, and so forth, social emotional learning. All of those are considerable goals for the district. And they all, and I can really sense that you have been carefully deliberating these changes in terms of the overall impact of the district and what this district needs to do moving forward. So I applaud you on this recommendation, and thank you very much.
Dr. Williams?
Okay, further discussion.
Yes, Dr. Williams, I also applaud Dr. Baker for the effort that it took, but precisely because of the rethinking of leadership role, it's not as if these positions remain the same, right? The rethinking involved in moving forward, precisely for the points that all of you have eloquently illustrated, you know, and for me, it's also, I am sure that Dr. Brown and Dr. Simon in those leadership roles and capacities will excel. For me, it's just because of the uncertainty involved with not just our budget and fiscal outlook and uncertainty about enrollment, and because we haven't heard back from all of our stakeholders, I just needed more time to process and have these conversations with yourself and with executive staff around the strategic thinking for those areas. You know, as an example, and I'm sure it was thought through, but our EL and lost learning, you know, that has occurred in the last couple of months, you know, it's difficult for me to process the thinking behind the recommendation and at the same time weigh the current context that this thinking, you know, has to take into account and our most vulnerable students. So it's not at all a reflection of me not thinking that our leadership, particularly Dr. Brown and Dr. Simon, that are recommended for these promotions, will be effective. It's being able to, again, take into account, process, and think through the recommendation.
Just another brief comment. As we know, in personnel matters, we do get recommendations from the superintendent, and this is no different from any other recommendation we've gotten over the years. It's the same process. There's nothing new or different about it. These recommendations are brought to the board, and the board then can weigh in favor or against those recommendations. But again, it's the superintendent's job to bring those recommendations to us. And as board members, we can look at those recommendations, and if we have any concerns or problems, we are able to voice those concerns and problems. But at the end of the process, based on any of the past situations involving these kinds of activities, we vote. And this one is really no different than any other process.
I beg to differ, Dr. Williams. The difference here is that we were told today that there would be no action taken on administrative assignments. I wholeheartedly agree that this is the way that we've been doing it, but today is exceptional. We were specifically told as a board that there would be no action taken on administrative assignments tonight at our board meeting tonight, and I take issue with that because to me, we are open to asking questions. This is a personnel decision, but we were specifically communicated today that no board action would be taken on administrative assignments. So I'm not in disagreement with all the things you're highlighting. The only one I am is that this is a different situation in terms of what we were told as a board would happen tonight.
Dr. Williams, if I may address that issue. So, Dr. Benitez, you have to be upset with me on that issue. So the issue of the administrative assignments was for school personnel. We have some things that have happened that we will be bringing to you. We thought today some administrative assignments, meaning school site personnel. So that has changed, and they will be brought back on June 15th. It has been very common practice, and I'm the old man now here in the group of 18 years as superintendent, that when we do reorganization, that we do not send those informations out in paper. I'm just going to be really blunt and transparent and honest because we want to remain confidential and to discuss with the board and the superintendent. There's this great teamwork that goes on, and then we have brought those back forth. I probably have reorganized over the last 18 years, probably at least 5 or 6 different times. So so on the first part, that frustration is on me because I'm the one that pulled the item at the last minute, but it wasn't pulling the whole other item part that we're talking about reorganization.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, and that clarifies it, and that was clarified. And I'm not only am I aware that the way it occurs, I'm in agreement with that for the reasons that you mentioned. It's just that today it didn't play out that way. So that's why I'm highlighting my dismay with the either miscommunication or confusing communication about that. So thank you for clarifying that again.
Further discussion?
Dr. Williams, I think at one point, Dr. Baker, I just wanted to make sure.
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Kerr. I wanted to highlight, as you're contemplating the recommendations, just a few things. So I think Dr. Williams or someone spoke of redefined leadership roles. So I just wanted to highlight a few things that in my thinking around these roles will take place in the days ahead. In the role of Deputy Superintendent, there will be the development of district systems for cost reduction and savings that's based on a model that actually Dr. Brown and one of our fiscal services people developed, that is a model for how to look at cost reduction across the district that they will further develop for use in other departments. In the role of Deputy Superintendent, we will be looking at developing student engagement best practices that bring student voice into environments where they have not yet been, and increasing the alignment and coherence of multiple interdepartmental initiatives. In Dr. Simon's leadership as Assistant Superintendent, some highlights of my vision for that position is that Dr. Simon will have the responsibility of launching a district-wide social-emotional learning strategy that has been in the works for about 18 months. She will also launch a committee to study the overrepresentation of African American boys in special education and provide advisement and recommendations on how to move forward in the future. She will also help to revise the district's alternative education programming. It's a strength in her background, and it's something that she will bring to this position. In the position of Dr. Sosa Valderrama, a couple of highlights that are a redefining of that leadership role. Dr. Valderrama will work on developing and launching a district-wide intervention framework. She comes with a PhD in intervention and will help to launch that under Dr. Simon's leadership. She will also work with stakeholder committees to examine and assess district-wide suspension and expulsion data and make recommendations for future work. Going to Dr. Salazar's position, which is not a promotion, it's a change of title and a redefining of her work to include developing strategic planning processes, facilitating the superintendent's transition advisory committee, which will also engage the existing superintendent advisory committee in an opportunity to interact with Yumi Takahashi and her staff around budgetary items as an advisory committee. Dr. Salazar will also develop community engagement best practices and build upon some of the work of other offices to bring coherence to our approach of working with our community. Michelle Tomasian will strengthen business engagement and partnerships and develop an equity-centered funds development strategy. It's a strength that she brings from her prior work as an administrator in Highline Public Schools, and she will enhance our business engagement and our workforce development efforts with a focus on equity. And then lastly, a minor revision to the elementary office to include our preschool divisions so that we see things from a seamless perspective and not preschool as different than entry into elementary school. Mr. Moskovitz has worked very closely with the preschool divisions over the last couple of years. It's a natural transition, and it will allow us to really maximize the efforts of our preschools as students then matriculate into the elementary schools. So these aren't job descriptions, but highlights to the work that I look forward to doing in the days ahead and having just amazing staff to lead in the future.
Jill, if you could mention what is the budgetary impact on these personnel changes?
Sure. So these are no new positions. These are filling vacant positions. And at the same time that these positions are being filled, $1 million of certificated and classified cuts are made at the executive level. For example, just to give you an example, a cut of a deputy superintendent position and a senior executive secretary position, a cut of an administrative assistant position, a cut of an assistant principal position, a cut of a program administrator position, and a realignment of another classified position to be reflective of this new structure, which accounts for about $1 million of reduction while I'm making these recommendations.
Thank you, Jill. Further discussion?
Yes, Dr. Williams, I would just like an opportunity to express my support for Dr. Baker's vision. And in regards to our understandings continuum, I just want to say that these changes really support U6. And when it comes to relationships and how we support our students and staff on a cultural level, that type of thing, I think these changes are going to prove to be very supportive in that way.
Thank you, Diana. Further discussion? Okay, we're going to move for a vote. Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
I vote nay.
Okay. Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Myers?
Hey.
And I vote aye. The vote is approved 4-0 with one recusal. Thank you very much. All right.
Dr. Williams?
No, it's 4-1.
I didn't recuse.
4-1-0.
I'm sorry.
4-1.
Not a recusal, but 4-1. 4-1.
We have it.
Okay. Record that. Brent, am I off the hook on that?
Yes, you got it right now. It's 4 aye, 1 nay. That's correct.
4-1, right?
Yes.
Four votes yes and 1 no.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you, Brent. All right. Okay. Unfinished business, there is none. The adoption of the district's budget for FY 2020-2021. Let me bring in Yumi.
Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to discuss the 2021 budget with you. I'll preface what I have to say this evening with, though we were required to pass a budget by June 30th, this budget is very much a work in progress. With uncertainty around our revenues, with much work to be done on the expense side of our budget, this is just the beginning of our conversations with you and the community about the impact of COVID-19 on our district's finances. I'm not sure why it's not scrolling.
If you touch the screen, sometimes in Zoom, no, go forward.
Thank you. Our main funding source for the district is the state of California. Our budget per requirement is based off of the May revision, which is the governor's last proposal to the state legislature before budget deliberations are made and the budget is adopted at the state level, which needs to occur by the end of this month. Due to COVID-19, the income tax deadline was extended from April 15th through July 15th. Therefore, the state revenue picture was incomplete when the May revision was developed. And so there will be an August revision in which likely our revenue picture will also change. Continuing issues with respect to the state budget and will likely impact our finances that will go beyond August are, most importantly, the life of the coronavirus. Will consumer confidence in spending rebound? Will small and large businesses recover in the wake of the coronavirus? What will the end of federal unemployment benefits look like, and what will be the impact on spending? And what will be the overall performance of the world economy? California is the 5th largest economy in the world. This is a global pandemic, and what occurs in the world acutely affects the state of California's finances. The budget that the governor proposed in May is a far cry from that he proposed in January. That budget was structurally balanced and boasted record reserves. In March, the long-time economic expansion that we've enjoyed for over a decade came to an abrupt halt. We've all seen the economic indicators. The California jobless rate exceeded 15% in April and is likely to reach 23% when reported for in May. So the May revision is based on a $54 billion shortfall for 2019 and 2021. The governor proposed using state reserves, transfers from other funds, the suspension of some business tax incentives to balance the budget, but also had to propose reductions to balance the budget. Education comprises approximately 40% of the state budget, and he proposed a dramatic reduction of 10% to our local control funding formula, our main unrestricted funding source, as well as reductions to categorical programs. He also proposed cash deferrals, which is essentially delays in cash payments to school districts. On the flip side, he proposed temporary relief from our payments to the STRS and PERS systems, the scheduled increases to those retirement systems, and he continued his commitment to increase special education funding. He also proposed dedicating CARES Act, or federal aid funding of approximately $4.4 billion to school districts to mitigate learning loss. And he indicated that the cuts would be reversed if federal aid became available. Before you tonight is our all funds operating revenue budget of approximately $963.5 million. You'll see that the general fund comprises over 90% of that budget. Of our general fund, approximately 75% is the local control funding formula. So this cut of 10% is dramatic. It's approximately $70 million to our school district, approximately $1,000 per student. You'll see that the LCFF funding rose throughout the economic expansion, hitting a high of $735.1 million, and if this proposal passes, it would be $663.3 million. In the out years, we use the assumption of a 0% cost of living allowance, as well as declining enrollment of approximately 2%. As Dr. Benitez alluded to, their enrollment is of particular concern. Whether families cannot remain in the area because they simply cannot get back on their feet economically, or families simply exercising other options for schooling. We're actively engaging our families to understand what learning options they're interested in, whether they be distance learning, in-person learning, or a combination of both, and assuring our families that the health of our students is our top priority for reopening. The input that we receive will inform our planning, all in the hopes of retaining our families and keeping our community together. The federal revenue side is much brighter side. We have included $20 million of federal CARES Act funding that was allocated directly to school districts in our budget, and that offset general fund unrestricted costs. Again, the governor is proposing $4.4 billion of CARES Act funding to school districts to mitigate learning loss in the areas of additional academic services, learning supports, and wraparound services for our most vulnerable students. This funding must be spent by December 2020. So we're awaiting more detailed information on this funding source, and we will certainly include it in our budget and spend that money accordingly. Our traditional federal revenues, for example, our Title I, Title II, Title III programs, as well as Head Start and child nutrition, there are no known reductions at this time for that funding. He also proposed cash deferrals, which is in essence an IOU to school districts. It's a delay in cash payments. It's the timing of when we receive payments from the state. This forces school districts, number one, to rely on their cash balances to essentially float money, to pay their bills, and to make payroll. It also forces districts to interfund borrow if there are adequate resources in other funds, or we could go to the market and borrow cash on a very short-term basis. We feel we're in a very good cash position at this point. We have easy access to the market at very favorable rates, so we're not that concerned with this funding, with this proposal. However, this requires us to manage cash and watch cash very diligently. On the expense side of our budget, we've included all known program expenses, but our budget does not include expenses related to new standards or requirements for opening of school. We are deep in planning for the next school year, and we will include those expenses in the budget when they are determined. The operating fund budget that we have before you is $1 billion. Most of over 80% is in certificated and classified salaries and employee benefits. And for the general fund, it's approximately $934 million, about 80% as well, is in employees and employee benefits. We are a very people-driven organization. When we assess our fiscal health, we look at our unrestricted ending balance. Are we spending more than we take in on a year-to-year basis? These reserves serve as a cushion and allows us to be more strategic in addressing adverse fiscal circumstances like the one we face now. Over time, we've built up balances throughout the year. We haven't spent all the money that's come in through the good times so that we would have the resources to handle the eventual economic downturn and maintain some stability in our system. Little did we know how fast and how furiously the downturn would come. So our fiscal discipline throughout the years really buys us time and better equips us to address the current crisis in a thoughtful way, whether it's through budget reductions and budget realignments or advocacy work for more funding. I'd say this is a very fluid situation. Many of the facts will change, but we are in a better position than most districts to address this challenge. As I said before, this is the beginning to an ongoing conversation with our budget. Our next formal stop is the actual adoption of the state budget, in which our revenue picture may change, the August revision, and we are required to revise that budget within 45 days. So we're committed to being open and very transparent in our budget and to keeping the community informed about budget information when we receive it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. We can get a motion, we can go into discussion. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Dr. Williams, and colleagues, I know that sometimes we don't agree on policies. I implore you that we not vote to adopt this proposed budget tonight in light of all of the events that have occurred, particularly the last couple days here in our own communities. our community's attention hasn't been on this budget. Our community's attention has been on this pandemic that we've been suffering, on protests that unfortunately got hijacked by a few folks looking for opportunities. The importance of this budget, as Yumi just confirmed and reiterated, on not just next year, but the upcoming years, just highlights the importance of assuring that stakeholders have authentic, genuine input in our process and help to inform our decision making. This has the impact on generations of future Long Beach students, on our staff, across the board. So given the context that we are in, given the uncertainty that Yumi has just highlighted, given that we will have to be making a revise after the August revise anyways, let's push back our decision a couple of weeks. Let's look at the survey results. Let's get more community input. And I'm not saying that the budget from the state's going to change dramatically and now in 2 weeks, but let's hear our community members at this time, because the last couple of days, I'm in downtown, folks. The last couple of days, folks' attention has not been on our Friday agenda, nor has anyone, including myself, had been able to look in a detailed way at the 50-odd pages of this budget out of just a moral obligation that we have for community engagement and to hear our stakeholders and to have an opportunity for them to weigh in. I understand that we have a June deadline for our budget. 2 weeks is not going to, hurt us to give folks some time, to give us some time to process these recommendations. Yumi, I appreciate so much you putting this together, given the June deadline and given the rewrite that we have in August. And I know that we'll be committed to have conversations between now and August as well. I just don't see the sense, given what's happened the last couple of days, given this global pandemic, that all of us have been impacted by, but particularly our students and community members that would be most impacted by weighing in to our budget. I implore you to consider not adopting this budget tonight and pushing it back to our next school board meeting on the 15th.
Dr. Williams, hey, I have a concern that we have a vote tonight on the adoption of our budget on the very same night that we have a public hearing. And we heard a number of thoughtful people who've studied the budget and raised questions about it. I would concur with Dr. Benitez that it would not hurt us to wait 2 weeks before we take a vote on adopting the budget to allow it to be fully studied and aired by those concerned.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Williams, sorry, may I go ahead? Thank you. I'll address Dr. Benitez's and Mr. Meyer's point. I concur with them. So maybe from a Robert's Rules order, I can get to that at the end. I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask Yumi, if I could do that, and then address the procedural piece at the end. Okay. Thank you, Yumi, for you and your staff for all of this hard work. I know putting together this budget is not easy. From putting together $1 billion budget isn't easy anyway, but when it's bad news, it's even harder because of the considerations that go into that. So to you and your staff who have been working really hard on this the last 6 to 8 weeks, I appreciate that. I just had a couple of comments, and I appreciate you sending the slides to us ahead of time. It gave me a time to jot some things down. So when we're looking at our LCFF dollars projected, and you said it's approximately $1,000 per student, I'm looking and we're back to that between 2014 and 2015 spending level, which was really just at the beginning of the implementation of LCFF. You talked about the federal revenues and that you did include the CARES Act funding to direct districts. And I know some of the comments from the public had to do with potential funding that may be coming from the federal government in terms of the HEROES Act. And you did not include that, and I want to thank you for doing that. All of the conversations that I've been engaged with districts at the national level around advocacy is that the HEROES Act is not a done deal. It's not even sure that the Senate will take it up anytime before August. So thank you for not putting in potential dollars that we don't have, that we'd have to even take out later. Around the $4.4 billion for the CARES Act funding, I just wanted to throw in an idea, and I know everything is in flux right now, because of the trauma that our families and students have been going through the last 8 weeks, and especially the last couple of days, that there's a consideration to spend some of that funding to keep our family resource centers open during the summer in some capacity. Maybe not all of them, but a centralized location that we can continue to provide supportive services and relief and respite and referrals for our families during our summer programs, our online summer programs, whatever that would look like. But I know that's not usually something that happens during the summer, but I would hope that we could look at using that specific funding, because I think that is part of mitigating the learning loss and the social emotional impact of COVID-19 and what's happening now. So as we have those conversations, if we could really consider looking at keeping those resources available through the summer in a somewhat robust capacity. The next page on deferrals return, I'm hearkening back to when I was a parent sitting in school board meetings concerned about the budget, and remembering how I first learned about what deferral payments are, and I think we talked about them, and I think that was really profound at that time, because we had a couple years of deferral. And so what that means for folks listening is that the state makes payments to the school district on regular basis. And so what they're saying for next year and possibly moving forward is that the normal payments that we would get next May and next June, we will not get until July or August. So essentially we're getting 2 months of no payments from the state. They will defer those payments to us until July, which means we have a cash flow issue. We still have to pay our bills without that state payment coming in. So when we talk about the amount of our reserve, how important having a healthy reserve is to making sure we can pay our bills as the state says, wait, you'll get your money in a couple of months. So I just wanted to make that point, and how important it was for me to learn that as a parent. And what that means. So if we have basically you have a job and your boss says, I'm not going to pay you for 2 months, figure out paying your bills, and I'll pay you in a few months. That's the situation that we'll be in at least next year and potentially the year after with state funding. I know we're still planning for what reopening of school looks like, and so we can't estimate those costs until some of the health orders are finalized, is my guess. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll continue to have that that conversation, as we know that stuff changes day to day. On page, I think it was 14, the second to the last page on the graph of unrestricted balances and the very steep decline. When do you project that the district will start to deficit spend?
Here, the district would start to deficit spend next year in 2021.
Okay, so we're not currently deficit spending to a degree, but next year we would see an impact.
Correct.
So it goes back to the reserves that we have will then be used up by that deficit spending.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the last page, and I think this speaks to the procedural part that my colleague spoke of. So we have a June budget adoption. We have an opportunity potentially to do at the next meeting. And then we have a 45-day budget revision. So my guess, from what I'm hearing from other districts and what we've seen from the state, is we won't see any new financial information between now and our next board meeting. That the numbers we have in front of us to try to cobble together a budget will not change. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my question then is, so between June and the August-September square, so we're going to approve a budget in June. Do we have, and maybe this is a question for Dr. Baker as well, what does that in-between time look like? Will we put together a budget committee? Will we have opportunities for the community to gather virtually, to have conversations? Do we have a plan around what the process will look like in that little in-between space between a budget adoption and our revision when we have a better grasp on real numbers?
Sure. So we're in the process of putting together a plan. Yumi and I are working closely on how to bridge the superintendent's transition advisory committee with a budget advisory capacity in that. We are also in the process right now of working with some of our partners, including Children's Defense Fund, Californians for Justice, and public advocates. Actually, as soon as our district home learning opportunities survey closes, we will put out a survey into our highest needs community to prioritize from a parent perspective and from student perspective in those highest need communities with our partners to help us prioritize the needs. And so we'll take things into consideration, such as your suggestion, Mrs. Kerr, to have the FRCs open, and especially if that comes out of the survey data, those will be things that we can activate to some degree immediately while we then initiate our advisory committees this summer.
And I would just add to the board, we can postpone the budget adoption, that's not a problem, but the numbers will not change. You're going to get the exact same document that you have tonight that you're going to get next week and 2 weeks. And the reason for that is because we don't have any other data to give you. So as Dr. Baker and Yumi have stated, there'll be a ton of engagement from multiple stakeholders to go forth. We are inviting thousands of youngsters to go to our summer learning program. We can immediately implement the suggestion if staff's willing to work on the FRCs, that's not a problem, and so on. But the real meat of the matter will be between June 15th and September, because that's where the feedback will come from multiple folks, because by June 30th, we will have a budget. And then it may be modified again in August if the revenues are even worse than the governor predicted. And I would just want to say this, in our comments, and I thank everyone for their comments because I think it's really important for people to be engaged, the Senate passed a budget that's not going to get approved by the governor. The Assembly is going to pass a budget that's going to look very similar to the Senate budget. That's part of the negotiations. So, but there's no way that we're going to get more money next year than we have this year. The key that we have to work on is how do we spend the money that we do get that we have not included, for example, the federal money from the governor, the $4.4 billion, because our speakers are right. That share of our money will be someplace between $30 million and $40 million, depending on how they negotiate to give it to different districts. So I applaud the the board for listening to the stakeholders. It's no problem on holding the vote tonight and bringing it back on the 15th, but I just want to be really honest with you. The documents will be the exact same documents because we will not have any number changes. The most important piece are the items that Yumi and Dr. Brown Dr. Baker have talked about, the input that we've received from the 18,000 people who have given us information on home learning survey, the survey that we're going to get from the next survey we're putting out with our partners, the information we're going to get from our advisory groups. So this is going to be a very busy summer to get all this information. So I just want everybody to know that. And we'll come back to you on the 15th to tell you how many students have signed up for our summer school programs, because we've allocated millions of dollars for summer as well as all year next year for mitigating learning loss.
Mr. Superintendent, on that last point, thank you. Thank you for that last point. Just a clarification, and maybe it's Ms. Takahashi or you. My understanding is that the learning loss mitigation is based on CARES Act, not HEROES, and that it's committed. It's just a matter of distribution is to be determined. Am I incorrect in that?
Do you want me to go? There's two pieces to that. There's our CARES Act, which is the 20 million that we know we're going to get, okay? That's us. There was 1.6 billion to the state. The part that we have not included is the money the state got. The governor received $8 billion. 4.4 he's recommending to districts. That's, as our stakeholders commented, that has not been decided how that's going to come out. So there's still negotiation on that part. So we have not included those funds. Those are the funds that must be spent by December of 2020.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so then from the just to finish up from the procedural question then, I think it would be important to postpone the vote for transparency's sake in the sense of the numbers might not be different in 2 weeks when we get this back. I fully understand that we are still dealing with the same financial situation. But maybe what we could do is have a report back on any work that's been done on some specific engagement opportunities other than the survey, maybe even just a rough timeline as it's been worked out if staff moving forward could come back with that so that our stakeholders who may ask those questions in the next 2 weeks, we can come and say, these are some sketched out opportunities for where you can expect us to reach out to you for engagement. So wondering if Mr. Meyer would withdraw his motion or amend his motion to postpone, however we need to do that from a procedural standpoint.
Brent,
I believe I made a motion.
can we pull the motion back and just pull this item from the agenda and bring it back at the next meeting? Okay.
The answer is yes. That once there's been a motion and a second, that motion belongs to the entire group, and the entire group can decide to bring it back in another meeting. Or Mr. Meyer could, and I couldn't hear what Mr. Meyer just said. If Mr. Meyer said that he wanted to make a motion to withdraw his motion, then the rest of the group could agree with him, and then you can bring it back at the next meeting. Either of those ways will work.
John, you want to withdraw your motion?
I'm happy to do that in that I don't think I made a motion in the first place, but I'm happy to withdraw if you think I made a motion. I will.
Well, Letitia can tell you who made the motion.
Yeah, we did.
Who made the motion? Was it John?
Yes, Mr. Meyer had made a motion,
Okay.
and Diana had seconded.
Okay, John, if you pull your motion back.
Happy to do that. I withdraw my motion.
All right, so we do not have a motion on this item. Chris, we want to carry this motion over until the next meeting.
We will carry this item over for adoption because we have to adopt by June, obviously. And we will take the other issue of bringing back a plan and any information we have regarding our summer programs and so on. So we can bring that back easily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next item, COVID-19 operations written report. Chris?
Yes, this is a little easier item. This is a requirement because the LCAP is not being adopted. The governor just made a requirement for all districts to state what they did during the COVID closures. So in this document, you see there's mention of our online learning program, our grading practices, how many computers we gave out, the staff development we've given our teachers, the meal services we provided our students, the child care opportunities that we have worked with our partners, as well as our own staff that we provided for. So this is just to replace the LCAP for the spring, just to say what have we done as a district to address the closure.
All right, thank you, Chris. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Move approval. Second.
All right, open for discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with Yumi that this was a qualitative review of the work that we've already done, basically to justify the funding that we already received. That when we closed the schools, that the governor said we had to continue instruction, we had to continue to feed students, and so there don't need to be dollar amounts attached to this in the same way as there is an LCAP. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion. Okay, we'll call for the vote, roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Mrs. Kerr?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Board Policy 5123, Promotion, Acceleration, Retention. Jill, you want to provide a little background on that?
Sure. Ms. Secchi has prepared this Board Policy 5123 recommendation to suspend the promotion, acceleration, and retention policy. In 2009, a group of teachers, actually, and myself, came to the Board of Education recommending a revision to the board policy that actually raised the standards for promotion and address the issue of retention. The policy has not been amended since that time, but we're making a recommendation in continuing the philosophy of do no harm that you have seen in the secondary realm. This is specific to elementary students, to suspend the current policy. We will continue our plans for intervention for summer, for extended school year, as well as intervention through distance learning, and continue to provide the supports for students, but will not be using the policy to retain students for this year. There are some circumstances, as you can see, that students or that schools may make contact with the elementary office to make an individualized decision that would include a parent's recommendation, but at large, the policy is being recommended for suspension.
Thank you, Jill. We get a motion on it?
I move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Open for discussion. Okay, call for the vote. Roll call vote. All in favor, Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Athletic eligibility. You get a little background on that one?
Yes, members of the board, this, as you know, this was a policy that we adopted in March of 2015. And the reason we adopted this policy, because we have a much stricter policy than the CIF for the sit-out rule, was that we were having some serious issues of recruitment of our student athletes from school to school. And that's just being very open and transparent. And so and we tried many things to mitigate it before we brought this recommendation to the board. This was voted on at that time on a 4-to-1 vote. And since then, we have put in new protocols to make sure that this doesn't happen. Just for a point of information, we had about 6 or 7 student athletes who appealed the decision to be a varsity athlete if they transferred, and all but one of those was actually approved. So this policy did exactly what it was meant to do. It was meant to stop the actually recruiting from our own coaches from our own schools, and that was a problem. With the new protocols that have been put in over the years, and Dr. Camarino has refined, so through school choice, any student who applies, and this is a student who's in grades 10 and 11, to go to another school in our district, they have to be approved by Dr. Camarino's office. And so this is a step that has not happened in the past. So it's my recommendation that if the board approves this, that we go back to the CIF rules of sit-out, and we continue to have Dr. Camarino's office be the gatekeeper so that we make sure that we do not have the issue of our student athletes trying to go from one team to the next team based on what might be perceived as the better team. So, and that type of thing. So that's, here's a great example of we put a policy in place to do something. It did what we wanted it to do, and now we have new protocols in so that we really don't need this practice.
I move approval.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I would only.
I just want to thank Oh, go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
I'm sorry. I would only add that this relies on the integrity of Jay Camarino, who I fully trust. Jay's a very intelligent man, has a great journalist background, a great sense of fairness and justice. I worry, though, that as personnel changes, then the rule can be bent and used different ways. But I will go along with this, Mr. Steinhauser, only in that I fully trust Jay Camarino.
That's a big endorsement. Megan?
Yeah, I want to thank the superintendent for bringing this forward. It's no secret I was the lone dissenting vote on this a while ago, so I'm happy to see us rescind this. And for as much as it has done some good, I think some kids have and students have been inadvertently had issues with it. And so I know we have to correct for sometimes adults' bad behavior. And I'm glad that there are new protocols in place within the high school office. I'm glad the CIF has stepped up and tightened some of their regulations as well. And I look forward to us supporting our student athletes.
Thank you, Megan. Further discussion? Call for the vote. Roll call vote. Let's see. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Resolution 060220-A regarding the Education Protection Account for FY 2020-2021.
I move approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Resolution 060220-B, giving authorization for temporary cash borrowing between funds. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Move approval.
Go ahead.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Yeah,
All in
could,
favor? Discussion? Megan?
I was just going to ask if Yumi could just give a brief. This is a standard thing that we do every time, and it just allows for some flexibility. If she could just give us that little description, would be helpful.
Yeah, certainly. This item allows us to temporarily loan cash between funds in the event of sort of a need for funds to meet payroll, to pay bills, and while funds are awaiting. And funds must be paid back within that fiscal year.
All right. Move it to a vote. Roll call. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Resolution 060220-C, superseding resolution number 061019-C, and establishing revolving cash fund for the Long Beach Unified School District.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote. Dr. Benitez?
Aye.
Ms. Craighead?
Aye.
Ms. Kerr?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved unanimously. The last item was pulled, so we will go right into the report of board members. Ms. Craighead.
Thank you. Yes, this last week has been particularly difficult at a time when, people are down, and it's just hard to find the words for what's happening right now. And Dr. Benitez, you mentioned earlier the challenges of being downtown and being more at the epicenter of the unrest and what's happening. And I'm glad that we put out a message speaking out against injustice. I'm glad that the media is making an effort to make a distinction between people who are exercising their constitutional rights versus people that are just engaging in criminal activity. I'm glad that there's that distinction being made. But even though we're in the middle of some of the toughest times economically, socially, emotionally, all that kind of thing, there are still good things happening, and I think it's very important to mention that we have school administrators and organizations that are there to help, that are there to make sure that we're meeting or at least addressing the needs of our kids, of our communities. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. That at Coverly we have a diversity and inclusion committee, and even though kids are not on school campuses, this organization was able to create a diversity week. This was a couple of weeks back, a diversity week, and they had a whole week-long agenda of activities so that the parents who were at home with their kids could engage their kids in these types of activities. And we have school administrators that are reaching out to their communities and supporting them. And what it all comes down to is we support each other so that we can support the kids. And it's all about what we're doing to support the kids. And we always have to keep that at the forefront of what we do, because that's who we are. So even in the midst of everything else, we have to remember the effect it has on the kids and what we can do for them, and focus on what we can do, the steps that we can take. Our Stanford principal, Suzanne Caverly, she put out a message to her school community about a place where we can start with having conversations. That's a place where we can start. And I think it has to start with our kids. It's got to be terribly overwhelming and confusing. We're stuck at home, but then there are people out in the streets, and what are they doing? And it's scary as an adult to hear all the sirens constantly and the helicopters, and to have emergency alerts on our phones, and the fear of what's happening, of our society kind of unraveling. But then again, I have to come back to focusing on the good things. We're seeing how common citizens are protecting property. They're standing in between the criminal element and places or people that need to be protected. And so it's these types of things that give me hope that we will be on the right road, that changes will be made so that it will be better. Thank you. I think I'm going to stop now.
Thank you, Di.
Yes, thank you. I would just want to echo Ms. Craighead's comments. I am grateful for the statement of this board. I know that's not something that we've probably ever done before, but it was important that we stand with our Black community, and that we stand as community together in support. I am grateful for the staff who have supported the return of some of our essential workers back to our school sites, and who continue to provide support for our students and families, and for our child care providers who have made that return possible for some of our employees. There's just so much uncertainty, and I said earlier, there's so much uncertainty, so much trauma, so much concern, but we continue to serve students. We continue, we know that there's library book returns and gym locker returns. And students are at times coming to campus and getting to see a familiar face and how important that is. Even on Monday, on yesterday, which was a tough morning for some, I talked to some teachers while I was out in the community and how important they said it was for their students to log on and to see their teacher. And it was a sense of comfort and stability. And the reminder that we continue to be that stable force for some students when they don't have a lot of stability in other places. I'm grateful for the professional learning community on Twitter in the Proud to be LBUSD hashtag, who continue to reach out to each other, who continue to look for resources. There was a thread this week on anti-racist curriculum and books and learning opportunities, some of which our district has already provided to staff and learning that we've been doing for a few years. But the desire to do better and to serve the needs of our Black students specifically better is so hopeful and heartening. And we know we have work to do and a long way to go. But to all of those educators who are reaching out to each other, thank you for doing that. Thank you for reaching out and helping us do better. I think that's all I've got. We continue to see kids the next couple weeks. There will be some celebrations. Our virtual graduation is coming up, and I'm grateful to our media services who have been working incredibly hard to make that happen. And so as our promoting and graduating students continue to see the end of the light of the tunnel, I say thank you for your dedication to your studies, to your learning, and we look forward to celebrating you in the upcoming weeks. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much, Megan. Dr. Benitez.
Yes, thank you. So a couple of things. I want to thank everyone that is still participating through our public comment. Just appreciative that even given this context that my colleagues have already referred to, that folks are still engaged with us. So just so much appreciation for them sending in their comments. I also have a question for our staff, given that I know that some of the comments have been submitted in languages other than English. I know it's probably really challenging, thank you, Leticia, to get a comment in Spanish and then have to translate sort of on the spot there. So I'm wondering if we can explore another mechanism where, one, we account for the comments that come in the English, in non-English, but that, of course, we want to remain true to the authenticity and the integrity of the comment. So I'm wondering if there's a way if Leticia is open and willing to read the comment in Spanish and then do some kind of translation, interpretation like we do with our in-person meetings. And I haven't thought it all the way through, but Leticia, I appreciated you doing that today, so it made me think of if we can explore another way to work out the interpretation with that. So let me continue here. So thank you, board members Craighead and Kerr, so I'm here. I'm not going to say my address because then I won't hear the end of it, but I'm in downtown. All right, along with a lot of other folks. And it's not to say that other parts of our beautiful city weren't impacted, but it has been quite something here the last few days. So I'll say two things about that. One is I am extremely proud of all of Long Beach coming together yesterday. It was inspiring. It was much more than a silver lining. It's what we as a community are at the core. To see hundreds of folks out, possibly thousands, yesterday cleaning up, and more importantly, presenting a counter narrative to the narrative that was hijacked by a few. That narrative of Black Lives Mattering. I appreciate that folks came out and did not contribute to that narrative of protest being hijacked. So I'm not going to focus on that part. I do want to focus on our Black Lives community. I stand with our Black family, our students, our communities of color. And as Board Member Kerr already alluded to, we can start with our own school district. For all the great things that we do as a school district, I love and appreciate that everyone that I've interacted with in our district knows that we can do better. We can do more. And there's a lot of work to be done. We can address the structural and systemic issues that we still have, and we could provide more spaces, quite frankly, for Black student voices. We can listen more. We can include students in decision-making spaces. We can do more with our opportunity and achievement gaps. We can do more restorative justice. We have the foundation for that. We can do more work around alternatives to suspension. We can do more to address the disproportionate suspension and expulsion rates of African American students. So I appreciate the thinking and the leadership, Dr. Baker, because that's exactly the kinds of strategic conversations that address these systemic and structural inequities. We can have more mandatory implicit bias training and anti-racism training, and more work around relationship-centered schools. And so leading with equity by acknowledging those areas that we need improvement in and implement and or expand solutions such as the ones that we're already working on make me proud and is a clear testament that Black lives do matter and that we have substantive, concrete things that we do well, things that we should be doing more of, but also things that we don't do as well, that we need to be more responsive and cognizant. Our communities are severely hurting right now. You know, in addition to, again, this global pandemic, I'm worried about this summer, folks. I'm worried about tonight. Helicopters and sirens are going on right now in the background. I don't know if any of you can hear, but I'm worried because so many of our Black family are hurting and our communities of color are hurting. So I want to present a challenge to our staff. I know we've alluded to it. I know we've shared it. I know I've heard you say it, that we keep as many of our resources and services available this summer. In spite of this uncertainty of the budget, I would say that even if we have to, Mr. Superintendent and Dr. New Superintendent, even if we have to dig into our reserves right now, there is not going to be another chance to provide the much needed support, resources, and service that our students and families need right now. So I challenge us to make those resources available this summer, these services available this summer and right now for our very severely hurting and damaged community that cannot wait for other resources to be available. I would say let's put something on an upcoming agenda. We're passing the budget potentially in 2 weeks. We can have some conversations, and I know Mr. Superintendent asked about the reserves, but I think right now that's why we have reserves, right, to be responsive in these moments. So thank you.
Thank you. John, did I call on you yet? Mr. Meyer?
I'd like to pay tribute to our teachers just for a moment. Let's talk with Mara Kate Smeltzer. She's an AP language teacher at Wilson High School. She called every one of her 175 students to discover that many were working to supplement their families in the wake of the pandemic-spurred job losses. From her, know that they can't be on the Zoom call at 9 a.m. because they're at work, so we're trying to get them the education in any way we can, she said. That means recording every video call, posting every which direction, sending reminders. She's just one of thousands of our teachers who are doing this kind of thing every day for our students while we're in this mess that we're in. From Mrs. Wilson, a fifth grade teacher at Lowell Elementary School, came this personal note. By the way, she wrote one to every one of her students. Dear Kingston, if there was an award for the best quarantine student, you would win it. I'm super impressed with your attendance, attitude, and work ethic. You've continued to make progress with your academics, with a little help from me and a lot of focus and dedication from you. Keep up the good work. No matter how long this craziness lasts, keep being brave and doing your best, even when it feels like no one notices. I have noticed. Take care and have an awesome 3-day weekend. Mrs. Wilson. Now, this is just a microcosm of things that are going on from our teachers throughout the district to our families at home. I applaud them. They are part of our battle, as John Meacham says, the battle for our better angels. John Meacham, winner of the Pulitzer Prize book, The Soul of America, which I heartily recommend all of us read if you have not, and particularly our president, because he emphasizes the fact that the long-term perspective on American history and a reason to believe the soul of America is ultimately one of kindness and caring, not rancor and paranoia.
Thank you, John. I want to just extend my warm wishes to Dr. Salazar, our school personnel, and our staff for recognizing our most inspiring students, not letting that get away from us, particularly at this time, as a major source of inspiration to all of us. The other thing I want to share is something that's very personal to me, and I don't talk about this a lot. But in 1970, I lost a brother who was in Santa Ana. He was in Santa Ana to sell some property, and his car stalled. And they tried to issue a citation, and he refused to sign it. So they took him, and he went to jail. And while in jail, there was a struggle, and 3 sheriff deputies, and he was strangled to death. And as a 19-year-old, and I don't talk a lot about this. I kind of keep this personal, but I had just gotten out of the service, and he was in Santa Ana to sell some property so he can go back to school with me. And we were going to go to school together. But his refusal to sign a traffic citation wound up in jail, and eventually he was got into a struggle with 3 sheriff deputies during booking, and he was choked to death. They took him back to his cell and basically said that he had died while in his cell. The other prisoners who saw it testified that he did not die in his cell. As a 19-year-old who had just gotten out of the military service, I had to take care of the matter for my family. That, going to school full-time, working full-time, and having to deal with that issue was devastating for me. It was difficult. And each time we see a situation like this, it reminds me of what happened to my brother. My brother was a star athlete in San Pedro High School, well-liked by the people in San Pedro. And because of that, his story got a lot of attention. It just did not die out. KNXT came in and did an editorial on his death. The fact that would he have been helped and his car had been towed away if he were not black. Baxter Ward came in and profiled the family repeatedly, and just to show that my brother grew up in a nice home in a nice neighborhood as a prolific artist. And at 20 years old, he lost his life. So these kinds of incidents resonate very strongly with me. And at some point, they need to stop. And The coroner's inquest held the police officers, the sheriff's deputies, culpable in the death of my brother. Then very quickly, the city reorganized the Santa Ana, incorporated the coroner's office, and basically came back with a second ruling that the police officers were not responsible for his death. It was devastating for my family and for me. So for me, in looking at these kinds of situations, as they transpire, what needs to happen is something very definable at this moment, and that is that we have accountability in law enforcement. I don't really feel that all officers, all people, all individuals in law enforcement are problematic. As president of the NAACP in San Pedro, I applauded many police officers for their work over the years. We do have a system in place that we do need to take some dramatic measures and steps to correct how this system profiles African Americans and it does not maintain the accountability in the process. So otherwise, we're going to continue to see these kinds of situations go on and on and on. And so suffice to say that we need to take a serious look at how we bring this under control. And again, as I said, I don't share this kind of information openly with people. It's very, very personal to me. You know, my brother was very close to me. And so I just want to get to a point where we can see this thing begin to stop. And with that, let me turn it over to the superintendent for his remarks.
Well, first of all, Dr. Williams, I want to thank you for sharing that because these are very difficult events, and it takes a lot to open our heart to share that with people. And I want to commend the board because throughout the years, you've always been committed to equity, closing the achievement gap, opportunity gaps. And I truly believe in my heart that even in this most difficult time that we're in, that Long Beach will lead the way. And it always has. Whatever has come its way, it's always led the way. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Baker for her reorganization, because one thing I'm so proud of our system, and you're right, Dr. Benitez, there's a lot of work to be done. We have a lot to be proud of, but we have a lot of work to be done. And that's what I'm so proud of this district about, because it's about continuous improvement. It's about continuous learning. It's about looking at new data and making sure that no child is left out, that all means all, and that we always are going to do that. The work's never going to be done, but we can always do a better job. And that's what's beautiful about this reorganization that Dr. Baker has put forth. Because one thing that Long Beach has, and I'm saying this is in a true bias form, 18 years as superintendent and life resident here, is that the governance team and the executive team work as one for one cause, and that's to support our young people. And we are blessed, and we can never lose sight of that. I have heard loud and clear some of the things you'd like us to bring back at the next board meeting, and we can do that very easily and share with you and take those suggestions, and we'll have some great recommendations for you. But I do want to thank you for everything you've always done over the years, and more importantly, I want to thank you for what you're going to do, because you all have a tough task in front of you, and it's going to there are going to be challenges that we've never seen before. But I know that this district will be the one to rise above and be the model for everybody else, with the leadership of Dr. Baker behind me and the entire group that she has to support. So as a citizen of this district, in this community, I want to say thank you, because you take your role very seriously. And you are, as Dr. Benitez said, it's a moral imperative that we do this work and we do it well. And so don't let these dark clouds of today get you down. They're actually our impetus for what we have to do for the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, we are now at announcements. Any announcements?
I have one announcement.
Diana?
And first I'll just say thank you for sharing that personal story with us. But I would like to congratulate the Fremont teacher, Mrs. Durazzo, because she was named as Long Beach Council PTA's Teacher of the Year. So I'd like to congratulate her.
All right, thank you, Diana. Okay, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.